Good morning. Please be seated. Miss Wolf, you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people will call...
She's here. She's in the back.
Excuse me, Your Honor. I have just learned that someone with special knowledge of this crime has become available to testify. I would like to bring that person to the stand.
Your Honor, with all due respect, the court is not going to hear an unknown, unscheduled witness. Who is it, anyway?
My assistant can bring her in.
Your Honor, this witness is not on the list, and her surprise testimony could be highly prejudicial to my client. Not to... Could we approach, please?
Very well.
Doris, it's a little early in the day for hocus pocus, isn't it?
I had no idea she was going to be here.
Oh, she just zipped up from Cuba, all dressed and ready to go, appears at our door?
Your Honor, she paid her own way to Springfield, and she can't stay long. I think it's crucial that we hear her testimony today, now.
Your Honor, this is nothing more than a legal ambush.
This doesn't look good.
Do you think this is some kind of a stunt?
Of course it is. Who do you think is pulling it?
Mr. Mahler, I agree. This is highly unusual.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Still, if the witness can provide insight into the case that no one else is capable of,
I can guarantee it.
then I think that outweighs your concerns over the prosecutor's role in bringing her here.
But
I think I'll hear the witness.
Your Honor, this is highly prejudicial to
You'll get a chance to cross-examine to your heart's content. Shall we continue?
Thank you, Your Honor.
He's going to allow her to testify. There's just one more thing to deal with.
Call your witness.
The people call Maria Santos.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name, please.
Maria Santos. I am the grandmother of Danny Santos.
Right, and the main reason I'm sitting here.
Mrs. Santos, you've given us quite an interesting glimpse into the makeup of your family. I'd like to turn your attention now specifically to the events prior to the death of your daughter-in-law, Carmen Santos. Do you remember the night of November 14th, 2000?
Like it was yesterday.
And you remember that night so clearly because of the terrible things that happened that night?
Objection, speculation.
I'll rephrase. Why does that particular night stand out in your memory?
Because nothing was the same afterwards.
Well, that was the night that Carmen Santos was shot and killed.
Objection! Date of death has not been established.
Sustained.
Mrs. Santos, did you ever happen to talk to the defendant on November 14th?
Yes.
By telephone?
Yes, and later face to face.
And where did this later conversation take place?
At my home.
And how would you characterize the defendant's mood at that time? Did he seem happy, sad, angry, nervous?
Angry.
At something someone had done?
Objection, speculation, all of it.
I'll rephrase. Did you have a sense of why the defendant may have seemed angry at that time?
His life was not going as he had hoped. He felt people stood in his and his wife's way.
I see. And did Carmen Santos's name ever come up during that conversation?
Yes.
In what context?
He wanted to know who she was, and I told him.
That's a lie.
And where did you tell him Carmen was?
At the old waterfront dock.
And that would be the same dock where her skeletal remains were later found?
Yes.
Just one more question, Mrs. Santos. Do you happen to know whether the defendant was armed that night?
I can't imagine why he wasn't.
Objection, supposition. The whole line of questioning is supposition.
Sustained. Strike the witness's response from the record.
Your witness.
Your Honor, in light of the unanticipated arrival of this particular witness, could I have a few minutes to gather my notes?
Of course. 5-minute recess.
All rise.
I need to ask you 2 questions about November 14th, all right?
You didn't sit next to me.
I like the view better from the other side of the room.
Oh, well, the view's actually better from the winning side of the room.
You brought Maria here, didn't you? She didn't show up by herself from Cuba.
You give me way too much credit.
They're starting.
Oh, thank you.
No, I don't give you enough credit, I think. Mr. Slav. The Springfield Arms Motel.
Counsel, are you prepared for cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, I am. Mrs. Santos, you testified that on November 14th of last year, you directed the defendant to a dock where he would find his mother, Carmen Santos. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you seem to imply that you knew what would happen once he got there.
Objection.
I'm sorry, I'll rephrase. You mentioned his anger and the likelihood of his being armed?
Don't put words in my mouth.
I'm not. That's what you testified. What I'm trying to understand is why would you give that particular bit of information to your grandson?
He asked.
Did he? Mrs. Santos? Are you familiar with this book?
I believe your wife wrote it?
Yes. Have you read it?
Yes.
In this book, there's a fictionalized account of a mob wife who has her husband beaten to death because he didn't divulge the name of his mistress.
So?
So, it is widely believed that that fictional wife was based on Carmen Santos, making the man she killed Miguel Santos, your son.
Objection, Your Honor. This is a novel, a work defined as pure conjecture.
Your Honor, I actually agree with that, but the book is not the issue per se. The only thing I'm interested in is what this book may have precipitated.
Objection overruled. Proceed.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Santos, I am wondering if at some point in time you didn't have a profound and frightening jolt of recognition when you started putting the pieces together and realized Carmen Santos, your own daughter-in-law, was responsible for the death of your son. And since she was responsible for the death of your beloved Miguel, how could you possibly not hate her?
Oh, that's nonsense.
On the contrary, I think it makes clear sense. Mrs. Santos, I think it makes all the sense in the world to send an armed and angry Danny Santos down to the dock. Because if he found Carmen and he ended up killing her, that would be good for you, wouldn't it, Maria? Because you wanted that woman dead, that wretched woman who took your precious Miguel away from you. Isn't that true?
No, that's not how it was.
Your Honor, badgering the witness.
Mr. Marler.
You sent Danny to do a job that you couldn't do, but you hungered for it every day of your life.
Your
and
Honor.
This was revenge on your part, pure and simple. You sent Danny down to the docks in hopes that he would turn Carmen Santos into a corpse for your sake, and that would avenge your son, Miguel. Isn't that true, Maria?
Yes. Yes. I wanted her dead.